What is one thing that most people get wrong as leaders when they're CEOs or they're leading a company?
I think the biggest thing leaders forget is they're there to serve their people. Just because you have a title, that doesn't mean people are going to follow you. You need to create the best environment for people to thrive in
Hmm.
and to give them the tools that they need to articulate in a very clear way what the strategy is, what the vision is, invite them to contribute to that vision, and then get out of the way. A lot of leaders feel like I'm the boss, I got to tell everybody what to do, and that's not what being a leader is all about. It's about being a servant, not just a commander of direction.
Hey guys, welcome to Hands, Heart, and Hustle, where we talk real growth in life, business, faith, and health. This is a show where we dig deep into the drive, purpose, and passion that fuel everyday people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Juan Briseño. Let's get into it. Hey Jeff, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here on my show, and we're just going to go into it and talk business.
All right, I'm looking forward to it, Juan. It'll be
Your
a lot of
favorite
fun.
topic.
All right, business. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Jeff Baldassari?
Well, right now, today, I'm the founder and CEO of the Competitive Edge Group, and I'm just helping leaders scale their businesses, overcoming challenges. And it's a lot of fun applying what I've learned over my career. I've been a CEO for 2 different companies in my career, and I've served on 7 different boards. And I like to apply what I've learned in the past and share that with others. And that's what's happened to me in my career. Other people before me have taught me a lot of great lessons, either as a mentor, directly or indirectly, and it really makes doing your job a lot more easier and fun.
Nice, nice. So tell me some lessons that you learned in business. What are some of those hard lessons that?
Probably the biggest thing I learned over the years was you can't do everything by intellect. You can't. Emotion is a big component of being a leader, and if you don't realize, the sooner you realize that, the better, because you could put everything on analytically on a spreadsheet, and yet that's not how life works. You're dealing with people, and everything in life is easy until people get involved. And there's a lot of emotion involved. And you need to navigate those emotional waters. And I think that's the biggest lesson. It took me a while to figure out. You just can't think your way through everything. You got to bring people in. You got to invite them in emotionally. They want to be a part of something, to be a contributor, and to be recognized for their contributions.
So some of these jobs, what is one thing that most people get wrong as leaders when they're CEOs or they're leading a company?
I think the biggest thing leaders forget is they're there to serve their people. Just because you have a title, that doesn't mean people are going to follow you. You need to create the best environment for people to thrive in
Mm-hmm.
and to give them the tools that they need to articulate in a very clear way what the strategy is, what the vision is, invite them to contribute to that vision, and then get out of the way. A lot of leaders feel like I'm the boss, I got to tell everybody what to do, and that's not what being a leader is all about. It's about being a servant, not just a commander of direction. So that's probably the biggest lesson that I think most leaders need to learn sooner than later.
Let's touch on something that you said that you had mentors that actually showed you how to be a CEO.
Yeah.
Our ego says sometimes that we're self-made as business owners. How do you feel about that? Are we self-made, or is there somebody that actually comes in and builds us up, but we're too proud to say that they do?
Yeah, nobody's self-made. Nobody. A lot of people in this world help you to become who you are, but also to help you get through a situation. Where they will maybe not directly or indirectly bail you out, if you will, but you got to catch some breaks, and you have to have people contribute. I guess you don't appreciate the contributions of others until
Mhm.
there's an absence of those contributions, an absence of those resources. When they're not there, then you feel it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you injure your hand, you don't think about, or your arm, you don't think about the muscles and the bones at all. You just go through your day like no big deal. But the minute you injure it, boy, you feel that every time. So the minute there's an absence of the ability to use something, you can't use your right arm to pick something up, then you realize, wow, how important your right arm is. Same thing in business. When you don't have that contribution coming from an individual or a group, a division, whatever it may be, when all of a sudden it's gone, you feel the pain.
Got it.
And I think that's a big lesson.
Okay. So you come into these companies where the company's already made
Mm-hmm.
and already flowing. What's the big difference between an entrepreneur, somebody that just started the business, and an entrepreneur?
So you describe an entrepreneur as someone who's already been doing well
From my understanding is an entrepreneur is somebody that comes into a business like you, CEO
yeah.
of already functioning and operating business.
Okay. Yeah.
What is the difference?
I think the biggest difference in mindset is entrepreneurs. You need an entrepreneurial mindset of your curiosity and to keep trying new ideas. But to be a true entrepreneur versus an entrepreneur, the way you've defined it, where I see entrepreneurs fail, they are excellent about making the widget or providing the service. They fall in love with the widget. They fall in love with the service, but they're not really good at running the business around the widget or the service. So an entrepreneur is someone who may not know how to invent that widget or create that service, but they understand the business around it to bring out the best of it and to grow it, to have it be accepted by the masses and to build an organization around it to build a business that's sustainable, profitable, and thriving. The entrepreneur will tap out very soon, not because they lack skill, they just have it's a different type of skill that's required to run a business versus create the actual widget or initial service.
Got it. Let's talk about cash flow problems. Some issues that most businesses have, and these are the top 5. So we're gonna touch on the first one is cash flow.
Okay, the piggy bank, huh?
Yeah, the piggy bank.
We're going to talk about the piggy bank. All right.
Was there ever a time in business where it was profitable, but it was still broke?
I've not run into that personally, but I've had clients who've been there. And why that occurs is they don't pay attention to their statement of cash flows.
Mm-hmm.
They look at their income statement, they look at their balance sheet, but they don't look at the flow of cash. Where's the cash going? And they think, oh wow, we made $100,000 this year, or we made $100,000 this month or quarter, but I have nothing in the bank. How can that be? Because they don't look at the statement of cash flows, and money is tied up in inventory, equipment, receivables, and they're not getting the return on investment from their inventory. The turns aren't there on inventory, or the equipment isn't generating the returns that they are expecting, or the receivables are bloated, and they're actually literally giving interest-free loans and working capital to their customers.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. You're welcome. And they don't realize it.
That's
and
true.
So they don't manage their receivables well. And even on the payable side, for example, they could be taking advantage of cash discounts, or even requesting them. So I get a 2% cash discount if I pay in 10 days. Well, that 2%, when you capture that with every vendor, as many vendors as you can, that adds up in a year. That generates anywhere, it depends on the size of the company, obviously. Right. You could pick up 10,000, 25,000, 50,000 in a year, depending on your volume. But that's free cash. Just by managing your cash to have the cash available to pay your vendors quicker, you then could reap a benefit from it. And that's like borrowing almost at 19% interest. That's a huge rate on return if you could do that and take advantage of it. So yes, companies that are profitable but that are cash poor, they're not managing their cash, and because they don't know where to look, and where you start is your statement of cash flows that shows you where all the cash is going, where it's sitting, and then you can start to evaluate, well, how do I squeeze out some of that cash and get a better return on it, whether it is receivables, payables, inventory, equipment.
Yeah, because right now credit lines and credit cards, they charge a high interest rate.
Borrowing your way out isn't going to work.
Yeah,
it won't work. Yeah.
So what's a mistake that most business owners make when they do get cash flow?
They haven't put in the tools or the instruments that would give them the visibility as to where the cash is, and they don't look at it with regularity. So, for example, you need to be on top of cash almost on a daily basis. How much came in? What are our average collection days? I have a client right now we're working with. Their accounts receivable are about 1.2, 1.3 million, and they're growing. And since their receivables are about the same level as they were in December, but the difference is they've grown quite a bit. And in December, their average collection days were 41 days. Now they're down to 34. Even though the level's the same, they freed up about $300,000 of cash because they've managed it on a daily basis. And how do they do it? They send out letters on the day 15. Their terms are 30. They give warning letters, and on day 30, they take action. Smart. And that's how they make sure the receivables don't get bloated, and how they've been able to bring down that average day collection. There's the visibility. They measure that, and their goal is to get it down to just below 30 if they can Because some customers pay 100% up front.
Yeah.
Some put deposits down, so they are able to bring it below 30 if they manage it really, really well.
So what's one practice that a business owner should implement with cash flow?
That would be it. The first thing I would well, two things I'd recommend is you've got to look at your statement of cash flows. You've got to know where the money's going.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, the easiest thing to do, or a couple things they would do, is I would ask for a 2% cash discount for all my vendors. Now, most aren't going to give it to you, but whatever you can get it, take it. If you don't ask, they're not going to offer it.
Yeah.
But also vendors like it. If you're going to pay in 10 days or less, they want the cash. So get that 2%. And then in the receivables, know what your average collection days are and stay on top of it. Also, well, you're in the construction business. You know this better than I do.
Correct.
Get your job right when you're done. You don't want to have those go-backs that some inspector comes in and says, hey, fix this, fix that. Now, there you go. You just lost 7 days, seven more days. You're not going to get paid or whatever the time frame is. So there, if you stay on top of operations, then it's kind of interesting how operational efficiency and accuracy affects your cash flow. Because you know this, if the inspector doesn't sign off, you don't get paid. And that slows down your cash flow. So it can come in a lot of different ways. It just depends on the industry, but that's what I would recommend.
So when most businesses owners get cash, there's always something that they want versus an actual need. Do you see that happening when you're a part of these businesses that actually they start getting into that emotional attachment? Oh, I need this, but it's actually not needed. It's a want.
Yeah, I've seen owners get into the lifestyle business, if you will. All of a sudden, the company gets to a certain level, and they're like, "That's enough," and they're thinking about themselves, not the organization, and they start extracting dollars for personal things, or they don't put the effort in to keep it growing, and they really hold back. They stunt the growth of the whole organization, and I think it's usually drawn by selfishness and maybe unintentionally. They just don't realize it. And I get it. At some point, you are burnt out. But why would you want to hold back everybody else? And if that's the case, well, maybe you start working on the transition for others either to step in and you could take a back seat, yet still retain full ownership, or you could transition out. There's lots of ways to do it through an ESOP or other methods, or a straight up sale, to sell off the company.
Right.
Or to sell to have the transition to the next generation. But I just don't. I think, and as far as running the business, I don't see too much emotion where I want something versus I need something. I don't see that running the business too often. But I do see the lack of visibility as to what's needed to keep going. They get caught up in this. This is the way we've always done it. And they don't have the ability because they're too deep into the woods or into the weeds, and they don't see that, we need to do something different because the world keeps changing. That's nothing new.
Right.
If you don't keep evolving with it, you're going to become a dinosaur at some point. But also you might run to the point where I don't know what else to do. I need better options. I need what else, and that's where, with our firm, that's what we bring to the table, better options for clients to utilize to keep the business growing and stay with the times.
Right. So out of the businesses that you help, what is the biggest output of cash flow?
Well, the one I had a client that had an accuracy problem, a distribution company, and they were making a lot of errors. And we were able to fix that, and collectively, together. It wasn't like I walked in with the answer. I walked in with the strategy, and they'd used their institutional knowledge, and we co-created the solution. But I put in the group incentive program. I'm a huge believer in groups incentive programs because companies run in groups.
Right.
They don't run by individuals. And the best example I always give is, suppose you have 5 people and 2 of them are hitting their goals, whatever the goals are, and 3 are not. Well, you're paying bonuses to 2 people, individual bonuses, and the other 3 they're not earning theirs, but at the end of the day, the company hasn't become better.
Right.
And so now all you've done is increase your payroll. That doesn't work. You do a group incentive program for all 5. It's either all 5 get it or they don't. Then it's merit-based. And that's what we did with this particular company. And the accuracy on their orders went from 60%. Now, I'm not saying the entire order was wrong, but on 40% of their orders, there was a mistake.
Got it.
Most of the time, they were little mistakes, but little mistakes add up.
They count.
And so we got those numbers after I left. About 6 months later, I heard the 3 departments were at 90, 95, and 100.
Wow.
And I think that translated into about $15,000 to $20,000 a month cash that they weren't, paying twice to get the same job done. So it really does add up. It's amazing how little mistakes cost a lot of money over a whole year. You might think, oh, well, that's only $100. That's only $50. When you do that,
Small leaks.
yeah, when you do it 200 times in a year, well, that's a lot of cash.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You get those small leaks in the water hose, it's going to not
yeah,
output at the end.
yeah, absolutely.
So let's transition into hiring and retaining employees.
Yep.
You worked with second chance hires. What made you do that type of work?
By no choice. We were headquartered in Colton, which is near San Bernardino, and there was a high population of formerly incarcerated individuals. And there's a lot of competition for employees because, as you know, the Inland Empire is the largest distribution center in the United States, perhaps the world. I don't know that, but definitely the United States. And you have a lot of big box distributors, like UPS, Amazon, and they have 1 million square feet plus facilities in the Inland Empire and multiple 1 million square foot facilities.
Right.
They're gobbling up a lot of employees. And so that doesn't leave for smaller companies that are under 100 employees or near 100 employees. It's hard to get those folks. Now, the second chance folks are just as talented, but they just need a chance. And so when I started U.S. Rubber, we had about around 50 to 50% of the workforce was formerly incarcerated. So that's what I walked into. And we got up to about 2/3, 67%, somewhere in there, 67%. Not by intent, it just happened to work out that way. We didn't intentionally go seeking this population. That's what the population opportunities were. And then we figured out what's the best way to receive that and make the most of it, as far as not only acquisition of talent, but retention of talent. But that's why we ended up in that with that group. And it wasn't intentionally. It just, those are the cards you're dealt. Well, play them the best you can.
And sometimes they're the most loyal, right?
Oh, yeah. In fact, statistics show all other elements being equal, second chance employees will stay with you longer than traditional workforce folks. So it's about low 80%. It's like, I can't remember the numbers today. It was like 81, 83% versus low 70s. So they do stick with you longer, and because you've given them a chance and they're loyal and they appreciate that. As long as you do your part as an employer, hopefully they'll do their part as an employee.
Got it. So as far as hiring, what is it you base it off of, character or skills?
It depends on the category. I think the biggest thing is alignment. So both of those come into play.
Right.
Do their skills and their values or character align with who we are and what we need? And but what I learned with the second chance population is you have to also provide services and resources that traditional workers don't need, but that population does. That's where the mistake a lot of employers make. They want to get into the second chance programs. They don't provide the right resources, and so you're set up for failure. But when we hire people, I don't forget now, it doesn't matter,
right,
whatever the background is irrelevant. You want to align to make sure that their value system, their character is aligned with who you are, but also do they have the skills, and can they grow to where we need? And you can tell with attitude and desire, like where they want to be and what they want to become. Are they all about themselves, or are they all about the team? Because again, factories, operations, in construction, you have teams, right?
Right.
At work, you got to get along with people. You can't get a bunch of solo artists in a factory or in a construction site. It doesn't work. It's dysfunctional. You can't just do what you want to do and ignore everybody else. Life doesn't work that way. And you have to be able to weed that out. They may have good values and good intention, but they don't fit. They don't align with the culture. So that's what you have to look for. Will they blend in? And then, you could teach them the skills, even if they don't have all the skills you need, if they have the base ones. And plus, people get better at their jobs.
Right.
And they can grow into other roles as well.
Yeah, because you taught me this. You told me that you can't just go on the street and hire somebody with a heartbeat, right?
Nope. That doesn't work too well. It'll work for about a week. And then,
Yeah, I had to learn the hard lesson through that.
Yeah, write that one down. Don't do that one again.
Yeah, you're just hiring the wrong people. It just costs you more money in the long run.
Yes, it does. You solve one problem and create a bigger one.
Right. So how do you keep good people loyal to your small business?
You show that you value them. You give them recognition. You appreciate them. You don't take them for granted, but you have to do it through your behavior. Ask them to contribute to the solutions. Invite them in. Don't just tell them we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You could tell them, put something on the table and say, we want to achieve this outcome. Whatever you as a leader want to do for BCD Industries, what do you want to accomplish? You have in your mind how to go about it,
Right.
but keep your mouth shut. Listen. See what they have to say. They may have an idea because again, they're in the trenches. You are too, to a certain extent. But that's unusual. I know you're not spending all your time in the trenches, but most CEOs are never in the trenches. They're not a frontline worker. Your industry is a little bit different, but you're not in the trenches all the time, and you're not on all the different job sites. Okay, so they may see things you don't, and maybe there's a market or an avenue you want to get into, a channel of distribution, a sales channel, I should say, not distribution, but that you want to get into. But the people that are in there every day, just listen to them. They're not going to think like you do as a CEO, but they may tell you things you weren't aware of.
Right.
But then as a CEO, from your experience, you might think, well, I can connect some dots and make something really good out of that. So it's like listen to them. And when you do that and invite contribution and thank them for their contribution and recognize them either through bonuses, promotion, titles, responsibility, that's how you keep good people.
Yeah.
When you start taking them for granted through action, they're gone. When they're being ignored, even though you might not realize it, that you're doing that, you got to make the assertive effort to make sure you're giving them the attention they've earned and deserve.
Yeah. Because so the saying goes, people leave leaders, not companies, right?
Absolutely. Bad leader, bye-bye. Yeah, nobody wants that headache.
Yeah.
We got enough headaches in our life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's pivot into clear systems and processes.
Okay.
Let me repeat that. Let's pivot into the lack of clear systems and processes. What was the one simple system that you made that made a big impact?
The system operationally, I think in the factories, in manufacturing, the best thing of all is reducing material handling. So when you price out a product, I don't care what your widget is, even your jobs in construction, you price them out, okay? You're going to bake in so much labor, so much material. You can't bake in inefficiency.
Right.
You could put a little bit in. There's going to be a little bit of waste. There's going to be a little bit of material waste. There's going to be a little bit of labor inefficiency, but you can't have a lot. Nobody's paying for your screw-ups. So the best thing I've ever done from an operational standpoint is to eliminate material handling, like to go out in the factory and go, can we reduce that time, a minute here, 30 seconds there? And again, when you're doing that 5 times a day, 6 times a day by 10 employees times 260 working days, that's a lot of time.
Right.
And again, you can't bake it into the price of your product. So if you don't do that, it's a loss on your balance sheet. I mean, not a true loss, but it reduces your profits. So that's the one thing that I've done on the operational side. I think on the revenue side is asking the question, 2 questions. Who buys our stuff? And it doesn't matter if it's a widget or a service.
Right.
Who buys our stuff? Who's the ultimate end user? And the second part is, how are we going to reach them? But reach them in a different way. Don't follow the competition by going to trade shows like everybody else does. Go to their conferences. And that's what we did. We were the only furniture manufacturer at the Association of Legal Administrators, the ALA. We were it for 5 years. We had a monopoly. Instead of going to a trade show like Neocon, where there's 200 furniture manufacturers on 6 floors of the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, well, how much of a relationship can you build there?
Right.
Your odds are very difficult. And then especially when you're up against multi-billion-dollar companies, they can outshine you every way, to Sunday. So go where the customers are, build the relationships on their turf, and again, ask the question, who buys our stuff, and then figure out how to do business with them without burning any bridges, but also forcing the bridges you have to do business. They can't switch you out. Like they're going to have to work with you because the end user wants to buy your stuff, and that whatever dealer you're going through or distributor you're going through, they can't switch it out to try and make more money selling ABC product instead of your product. They're going to have to accept it because it's like either you want the order or you don't. So
Right.
that's probably what I did there.
What is a common theme as far as systems that when you go into these companies that you see over and over that you have to say, hey, you're missing this, like a very important system?
What I typically see, the mistakes are made by the leaders because they take a top-down approach, telling the workers what to do, and they don't involve the workers in the solution, the leaders of the factory. And it works on paper. Again, we go back to the people part,
Right.
but it doesn't work. It does work, so don't get me wrong, but it doesn't work as well as it could. So if you have a piecework system, and up here in California, piecework's not very common.
Right.
Back in Cleveland, where I'm from, it was in a lot of factories. But piecework has to be done right, because your standards, your benchmarks, that's probably a big mistake where companies don't have really good benchmarks or standards to measure against. They do a sloppy job in doing that, and they think, oh, we're doing great. We're at 100% relative to the benchmark. Well, if the benchmark isn't that good, your performance isn't as good as you think it is. So you got to make sure you're careful with that, whether it's a piecework system or just some variation of a piecework system, whether it's a standard benchmark. And that's where, again, you need to get contribution from the factory leadership. Don't just do it in the corner office on your spreadsheets and everything else, because there could be nuances going on in the factory that don't show up on that spreadsheet, and the world doesn't quite work that way.
Right.
And maybe you have to go out in that factory and make some changes in the factory, because maybe the cards are stacked against the worker because you're expecting the widget to take 3 minutes to assemble. But the way you got all the parts and pieces and so forth set up around that assemblyman, they aren't set up to do it in 3 minutes. They just can't do that. Or they could do it once or twice, but they can't keep that pace. They're human beings. They're not machines or robots.
Mhm.
So that's where, again, the leadership can go, well, we could do a little bit better with the setup to help enable that optimization that you see on your spreadsheet.
Okay, so going to systems, staying on this topic, how important is it to have a culture to create that environment so the system can actually function?
Right. I think to create awareness, because the factory workers don't always, and in most cases, don't know what the behavior looks like on the income statement. Why would they? That's not their job. That's not their responsibility. They get reports from the office, but they can't walk out they don't usually look at things in the same way, where you see excessive material handling over here or over there, or maybe they don't even notice it. Usually they do, though. The factory guys know pretty well when they're moving around really fast, but they're not getting anything done. They're just dancing, essentially. Right. But I think the leaders in the office need to educate those factory workers on saying that behavior right there is costing us $100 a day per employee. Whatever inefficiency is going on, or that material waste, there's a cost to it. When we make that mistake, they create that awareness, but then ask the factory leader, what can we do different? Now, they may or may not have the answer, but let's start that conversation, because, again, they are in the trenches. They may tell us something back, saying, wow, the CEO or the vice president of operations didn't realize that. And by inviting that contribution, they can create a better system. It's better for the worker. It's better for the company. Everybody ends up in the positive. And it's better for the customer. The customer, there's less mistakes made. The lead times go down. The work gets done quicker. It's easier to do business with your company when you take the time to put these systems in place. But you need to invite multiple layers of leadership to contribute to the solution.
Got it. So what advice would you say to somebody that's actually doing all the work themselves, wearing all the hats?
They're making a huge mistake. Number one, they're going to burn out. Okay, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
Delegation is key. You got to delegate. You're not a solopreneur. Unless you're a solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, cool. You have no choice, right? It's just you. But if you have an organization of,
But it's not scalable, right?
Right, you can't scale because it's impossible. But also you've got all these people around you. What are you doing with them? So why not take advantage of their skills? And if you start to say, well, they can't do it, then why the hell did you hire them if they can't do it? So hire people and give them the chance. Maybe they're going to surprise you. Maybe they can do it. Maybe with a little bit of training, a little bit of leadership from you, and a little bit of guidance, they can do it. Takes it off your plate. Let them shine. They'll feel appreciated. You'll retain them longer. You won't have the turnover and the distraction. Take advantage of the people around you. But when you become the bottleneck, you just stop the growth of your company instantly.
Right. Yeah. Right. Let's move on to marketing and sales strategies. How did you make U.S. Rubber bounce back and stand out? Well, if you did that, because I don't know if it was hurting when you came in.
No, it was stagnant when I came in. It was started by some great entrepreneurs that invented a wonderful product, but they were entrepreneurs. They didn't know the business around the widget, but they knew how to make the widget. And they made a great widget. And I can't make the widget. So it was like we had different skill sets. So when I came into U.S. Rubber, it was stagnant for I think about 9 years. It wasn't growing, wasn't going up, wasn't going down. It was just flat as a pancake. So how I made it stand out was I knew from experience, having been a CEO prior to that, we had to get the house in order. And I could tell right away the factory lacked the framework to do the best of its capabilities. So
Expand a little bit on that.
well, there wasn't
When you say get the house in order.
so there wasn't benchmarks from department. There was a couple things. There wasn't any benchmark for the workers. How do you know you got a fair day's work for a fair day's pay? So if a worker did 10 widgets in a day where they were slicing tile, how many tiles should they slice in a day? How many blocks should they slice in a day? The peeling of the rolls, the molds. How many molds should they peel in a day? How many molds could they mold on the mold line in a day? All these, I mean, it was a little bit more complicated than that, but it was those basic questions.
Right.
Then, so that was what's expected of the worker to measure is everybody contributing at the level they need to contribute. Then once we figured that out, we also had to make sure people were paid right because there was a lot of inequality in pay. It was all over the board. I straightened that out. That's another thing I did. So I made sure that Juan and Jeff were in the same department, and if we had the same skill level, and I would give a little bit of an increase because you may have been here longer than I am, that would just recognize your tenure, but not a lot. At the end of the day, you're making 7 molds, I'm making 7 molds. The balance sheet or the income statement, it doesn't matter. The customer doesn't matter. How long you've been here, how long I've been here. Just get the molds peeled, get the rolls done right, and out the door. That's the key thing. But the pay, I fixed the pay scale, the pay system, created a merit-based system of also for bonuses if they would do so much volume. But then the departmental capacities. How do we know how much we can do? If we get a bunch of orders, can we get them out the door? Well, that's a huge mistake. I also see a lot of CEOs come in. They say they want to grow. The first question I ask them always is, what do you know your departmental capacities? And they don't. Well, then how do you know if you got another $100,000, $1 million, $2 million of business, you could get it out the door? They don't. And what ends up happening in most cases, is if they're lucky enough, probably more times than not they're not lucky enough, but if they were lucky enough to get that business, they're going to crash and burn because they can't get it out the door.
Yeah.
And their lead times get bloated. They make tons of mistakes. It's just a complete train wreck. So the first thing was, again, accountability in the factory for what was expected, fix the wages, fix the incentives, then figure out the departmental capacities. How much business can we do? I knew where my bottlenecks were going to be. So I broke it down to each department. I knew what the capacities were. When we reached it, we would add people, add machines. Then that went up, and then have a new bottleneck. Because now that, just imagine like water flowing through and it's just getting pinched off.
Yeah.
And just figuring out where's it going to get pinched off first. If I open up that valve more, it's going to get pinched off somewhere else now. Fix that valve. And then when that valve, it's just a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You just keep changing those bottlenecks, okay, and fixing them. Then once I spent about a year doing that. Then what I was doing,
So that doesn't happen overnight.
Oh no, it takes time.
Yeah.
You could figure out the plan in less than a month, but it could take you, well, it depends on the company, how big it is, how many locations they have. It could take 4 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. It just depends how much work has to be done. But at a minimum, 4 months. Because even if you, on paper, put some numbers together, you got to see it in practice. Like it may not come out the way you thought it would. What else are you missing? Because you'll always discover, we forgot about this, or we didn't realize the impact of that, whatever it may be, or how flow would work. The handoffs, and like we went from a single shift of about 30 people to 3 shifts to close to 100 people.
Wow.
So handoffs are hard between shifts. We had that happen a couple times where they made the same order twice. And didn't realize it because they didn't communicate well between the shifts. It's hard to hand the baton to the next guy and make sure. And then also the speed. There might be some people working at one speed and you're trying to figure out the capacity. Everyone's got to work at the same speed. And so after we did all that, got the house in order, then simultaneously while that was going on, I started working on, we had an unusual situation. We had multiple business models. We had a B2B model, business to business.
Right.
So the commercial side, commercial flooring, commercial underlayment. And then we had B2C, which would be home gyms. Okay. And that was a totally different market. So that was more internet sales in-store sales. I was able to bring in Home Depot, able to bring in Floor and Decor, Lowe's. That was towards the end, but Home Depot was a prime one. Um, and then we had a bunch of online partners. So what happened during COVID, it changed everything, the dynamics, because all of a sudden the B2B, as we all know, a lot of businesses shut down. Our sales in B2B, our commercial sales, dropped 60%, 60, like overnight
During COVID?
during COVID. But our B2C model, I don't even know what the number was. I know what the overall sales were. We grew 120%
Wow.
in 10 months, even losing 60% of our commercial business at the time, which is more than half of our business. That's how crazy high the B2C model. So sometimes you bet on the right horses, and sometimes you can have too much success, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was a little too good, too
So
fast.
did you guys pivot immediately, or did you guys already have this in place where you could actually?
We had the overall factory in place as to what we were going to do, but when the B2C went so high to the moon, we started dedicating parts of departments to those B2C customers. Like we had 2 slicing machines dedicated strictly to Home Depot. We had 1 slicing machine and 1 table to roll rolls up with, partially for Home Depot, but also we had a company called an internet partner called Inc. Stores. They were headquartered out of Phoenix, Phoenix area. They gave us business every day. I mean, just a ton, every day, internet sales. So we pivoted a little. So we started dedicating machines so there'd be less setup time. We knew the SKUs were very limited for Home Depot. So, and for Inc. stores, so there was less, by dedicating machines, there was less setup time done. That's, again, that's, if you could reduce that, you can get more widgets out the door because that's indirect labor. When you take a machine down and you got to spend 20 minutes, half hour, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, 45 minutes, setting up the machine for the next run, you want to minimize that going forward.
Got it. What do most businesses get wrong when they're branding?
Internal communication. I did that mistake myself because you want to make sure from the factory floor to the receptionist to the CEO's office, everybody knows what's going on and they know who we are, what's our identity, and what's our story. And you want to make sure everybody's telling the same story. You remember the game we always play as like children? We would I'd whisper something in your ear and then you whisper it in Joe's ear and around the horn we go. 8 people later, the story changed. Well, companies that don't internally market, if you will, that's what happens. The communication is not the same.
Right.
And so you could talk to Juan over here and Joe over there, and what ends up happening is, do these guys even work at the same place? So they might have the same shirt on, but you're kind of confused because they're not telling the same story. So that's what I had to learn too, is to keep people informed. This is early on in my career. Keep them informed and explain why we're doing what we're doing. What's the story behind the brand? And then this is who we are. This is our identity. And get people in the factory communicating with each other in that same manner, and then externally, or even to the office, from the factory to the office, office to the factory, within the office, the different departments from customer service to finance to operations. Everybody's talking the same language, and then we communicate to the field, to our sales teams, to our customers. Everybody keeps hearing the same story.
So everybody's in sync.
Yes, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And you're never done. You have to stay diligent because you bring new people in. People leave. People come in, and you want to make sure we keep telling the same story.
What are some ways that businesses can get business?
Oh, to drive more volume? Again, I would just ask simple questions through the process of appreciative inquiry. Questions like, the best question of all is, what if? What if we tried that? What if we did this? What if we try to capitalize on that? Dream. Okay? But then the next question would be, so what? So what if we did that? Would it really pan out? You don't want to just drink the Kool-Aid, because then I'd rather have you have an argument, a challenge, a debate in the conference room, in the meeting site, to call BS on each other, essentially. If you could do that there in that space, you might prevent yourself from going to market with an idea and then have a face plant, just fall straight on your face because it didn't work out. So what if is you're dreaming, so what, to make sure it holds water, and then you'll refine it and all that. And then now what? How are we going to do it? What are the steps going to be made? And I think That's where you want to have the multi-layered contribution from leadership, frontline workers, outside stakeholders, adjacent departments. So even though you're talking about revenue right now, what about operations? Can we pull that off? You're promising to get lead times at a certain time. Like we're going to do this. We can say, hey, for a certain price, we're going to get that job done, within a certain time frame. Well, can we really deliver that? Do we have the departmental capacity to do that? Or can we finance that? Because, for example, let's say you go into a market and they don't pay in 30 days or 20 days or 10 days. They pay in 60.
Mm.
Can you float that cash? Because now you're playing bank.
Yeah.
You're paying your people. You're paying your suppliers. But that money's not coming in for 60 days. You need to have finance involved. So all those things come together. And then you may want to invite a stakeholder. And what I mean by that is a major supplier or a major customer. Get their input. What do they think? Well, that's a great idea, or that would mean a lot to us, or here's what we see. It's get that input.
To have customer B2B relationships and communication too,
if
right?
they're in your inner circle, invite them in because they can share some information you weren't aware of, and it opens up your eyes.
Yeah, that's clear right there because as you're already doing business with somebody, hey, how can we create this and partner up and become better?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to businesses, is this the same all across the board, whether it's construction, whether it's like a US Rubber or a store? Business is business, or how do you see that?
Yes, absolutely. We have clients in the last 6 months. We've had manufacturing, we've had distribution, we've had construction. Thank you very much, Juan. A great client. We've had construction, we've had IT firms, we've had environmental testing firms, digital marketing, also civil engineering. So a complete, variety. And now I'm getting back into another client we're going to sign up on Monday. It'll be a manufacturer, a different industry.
Mm.
It does not matter. They're just like certain things are timeless in life. Like something that was done 50 years ago, I kind of not a fan of that thing. Oh, that's old school. No, that's timeless.
Right.
Because 50 years from now, you're a young man. 50 years from now, when you're an old man, and people say, well, that's old school. No, because it was going on 50 years before you were born. It's just a timeless thing. So things can be timeless, and you have to realize that it works forever, whatever it is, okay? Not everything. There's I now that I'm getting older and towards the back end of my career, I see things that I saw 30 years ago. This is nothing new. Just we have new technology to speed things up. What I see the biggest changes today are speed and visibility, and the ability to reach. We have access to information instantly.
Right.
We know that here we got a little phone right here. Anything we want to know, we could find in a second. It wasn't like that when I was a young man. Okay, if I wanted to find a database, I couldn't find it. It took time to put it together. Now it's instant. If we want to reach those people, it's instant. So the tools of today speed things up, but if you don't do the timeless fundamentals correctly,
the basics,
it doesn't matter. But as far as the industries, it doesn't matter because That's what I was telling you. When Leslie and I go into engagements, you saw it firsthand. We bring a fresh perspective of questions. We bring our experience. You bring the institutional knowledge. I don't know anything about construction. I've never been in a construction. Well, I built a factory in Cleveland. It was a multi-million-dollar factory, but I wasn't in the field making it. It was pretty large on we were on, I don't know how many acres. Now I forgot. 12 acres. We were on 12 acres, okay? It's a big plant, big factory, 30-foot high, tilt-up cement walls, the whole 9 yards, and everything we did. But what happens is, just because you've been around something doesn't mean you know how to run the business. You have the institutional knowledge about construction. Another client has the institutional knowledge about manufacturing or distribution or environmental testing, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. But that's how we co-create the solution. So I didn't walk into your office and say, I have all your answers. Did we?
No.
We challenged you with questions. We brought up things you never thought about before. And then we listened to you because we don't know construction. You tell us about the unique things about your business. Then we blend together our experience as leaders of other. Leslie, as you know, she came from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Well, that's a general service business. It's a rental business, far different than my manufacturing and distribution experience, and far different than your experience in construction. But yet, there's a lot of commonality, and by blending those together, we make it all work. So As far as the industries, it doesn't matter, okay? Because we're not going to tell you specifically how to do construction, specifically how to do environmental testing, specifically how to do digital marketing, manufacturing. I don't get into that.
Right.
But I get into what I do know is the business around the service, the widget. That's universal. And that's where leaders have to invite others in, because I'm not in the woods with you. I'm not in the thick of the weeds, okay? I'm not caught up in the day-to-day stuff. I'm going to see things you don't. That doesn't mean I'm smarter than you. I just have a better advantage than you. And I have a ton of experience. I've done some really great things in my career, and I've done some dumb things too, okay? Yeah. And I've witnessed other people do great things. I've witnessed other people doing stupid things. So I could say to you, don't do that one, I made that mistake, or don't do that one, I saw somebody else make that mistake, or Juan, you got to do this. Let me tell you why. And it may not fit perfectly for your business, but you'll figure out, how do I make that fit in the construction industry? It worked over in that business. Well, how can I make it work in mine? Because it's a timeless thing. It's a little thing, but it's timeless.
Right.
And that's where the outside perspective. But no, if anyone thinks, well, you can't help me, you're not from my world, or whatever my world is, that's naive. That's really foolish.
Right. No, thank you for that insight. Let's go into the next subject: a lack of strategy and clear vision. How do you reset your vision when you're feeling burnt out, especially as a CEO, because you're wearing a lot of pressure on your shoulders?
That's where I would do two things. I would invite somebody in from the outside, spend a few bucks, get some new perspective, okay? Get some better options, okay? Everybody sees the decisions you make, Juan, don't they?
Yeah.
Everyone in your company, but they don't know the options you had. You may have been down to two options, and one sucked more. So it's all you had, right? So you reach that point when you are getting burned out, you need a fresh perspective. If you bring somebody in from the outside, and that's where what Leslie and I love doing, is it's fun for us, and it really takes the weight off the CEO we're working with. Secondly, you need to delegate a little bit more. Perhaps the organization has grown, or perhaps the people you've hired haven't stepped up enough, okay? Or it's your fault.
Right.
You're not giving them the chance, and you're giving them the easy out where, let the boss deal with it. It's off. I don't have that problem, and I can just go home and not worry about it. Meanwhile, you're going home and you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about it, and you own it a little too much because of your role or the fact that you own the business. Either one, doesn't matter. But I think that's where, again, if you're reaching that point of burnout, you're not going to be able to dig your way out of it on your own. I think, again, an outsider coming in, just regroup, if you will, and then reset the dial, like how we're going to do things going forward, because you can't keep doing what you're doing because it ain't working.
Right.
You're burning out. You're not getting the results you want or need. Something's got to give. So that's what I would start if I was in that CEO's shoes.
Got it. Why do so many leaders lose the big picture?
Because we're human beings. We get caught up in the day-to-day. We all do.
Yeah.
We get so caught up and pulled in, and it's like, you want to step back, and that's the hard part, especially when you're smaller. Well, the bigger companies can do it because the leaders will live in the future, if you will, because they've got a whole army of people living in today. But a smaller entrepreneur who's trying to build a company on his own, they lose the big picture because they're so caught up in the day-to-day stuff. And we've heard that cliche, you got to work on the business, not be so much in the business.
Right.
But you get sucked in because you got to do it, and someone's got to do it. And if you don't strategically plan enough, you end up reacting to things a little too often, and that can bite you in the butt, because you don't want to run a business reacting.
Right.
I mean, there are some things in life that are going to happen that you're going to have to react to, but you can minimize them through strategic planning, getting ahead of it, being predictive, because some things are going to occur. You know your business well enough knowing, man, if I go down that path, I'm going to get hit with this, I'm going to get hit with that. And I think because of that, when leaders get pulled too far into the woods or too deep into the weeds, they need somebody else to pull them out, because that's why they don't see the big picture anymore. They're just too far in, and they don't even realize it sometimes.
Right. What's your process to set up a 1 to 3 year strategy, or do you have one?
Yeah, it's appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry, I've been a disciple of for 25 years plus. It was pioneered by a professor from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. His name is David Cooperrider. It's a process. What I love about appreciative inquiry is not only does it solve a problem, if you mentioned strategic planning for 1 to 3 years, it transforms the organization because you're inviting that variety, those 4 buckets of people: leadership, frontline employees, adjacent departments, outside stakeholders, again, supplier, big customer. If you get that nice blend, but the hard part is being adept at managing the meetings, because that's where an outsider is needed as well. I could teach you. It's like teaching you how to play golf. I can give you the book. You could read it all and say, "Oh, I know how to play golf now, Jeff." I put a club in your hand, and you're not going to be that great at it right away. Okay. Appreciative inquiry is similar. I can tell you all the things to do,
Right.
no problem, but doing it is different in the beginning, because when you get those 4 groups at the table, what typically happens is the leaders dominate, and the lower level, the frontline employees, they're intimidated. And they shut up, they clam up, they watch the show, they don't speak up. And the leaders need to listen, and then the lower folks need to contribute. They're not going to solve the problem, that 1 to 3 plan, but they're going to provide the perspective that the leaders don't have. The stakeholders have perspective that the leaders don't have. And the adjacent departments will bring things up about, like I said, about operations, about finance. That if we get too, narrow-minded and just keep thinking about revenue, grow, well, what's that look like? Can we really get that out the door? Can we afford to float the cash? Because again, if you want to grow $1 million, you got to buy a lot of inventory. You got to buy a lot of this, buy a lot of that, a lot of labor, whether it's a service, and how fast you're going to collect money, and all those things. But in the end, with appreciative inquiry, if you do it right, you'll solve the problem, but you'll transform the organization, because now everyone's going to get the buy-in, the emotional buy-in, and they're going to be proud of the fact that they were listened to. Everybody likes to be listened to, and what ends up happening is the culture transforms, and now it's everyone's company, not just the boss's company, and they've been invited to the table. They feel respected. They feel appreciated. It's better retention. And they're going to look forward to the next one. It might be different people for the next one, or some of the same people. Doesn't matter. But it transforms your culture. And that's what I would go about, whether it's 1 to 3 years or any other problem I'd solve. I'd start with appreciative inquiry, but I also would recommend, if you're going to do it as a company, bring in someone like me that's done appreciative inquiry before. Just the first time. You don't need, once you've learned how to do it and see how it's done and get it set up for the people, because again, it's just like playing golf. I can hand you the book, you could read the book. That does not mean you know how to do it. There's a unique cadence and nuances to actually doing it, and that's where an outsider can facilitate that for it to happen, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. What's the range of revenue that you work with businesses?
Typically, the most common is $2 million to $20 million. We've gone above $20 million. In fact, our newest client is, I think, $25 or $30 million that we're going to be working with. And we work with clients in the $1 to $2 million range, too. But below $1 million is a little too small for us. And
Right.
I think companies over $50 million, they have enough internal resources. They don't need someone from the outside. But the most common is about that 2 to 20.
And do you see a common thread from the 2 to 20 that they're struggling with?
Same thing. It's a matter of they've run out of options, or they've had a couple things. There's 3 buckets I see. One is they're killing it. We have one client right now. They do not need our help on growing the business. They are on a rocket ride to the moon. Okay, they can't. In fact, they're pacing themselves on how much they want to take. So that's not their issue. Their issue is they're not worried about getting to 20 million. They're going to be there in no time. What they're worried about is collapsing internally. They need the framework to build out. When I talk about the departmental capacities, the right support, is everybody lined up and knows what everybody else is doing, that we don't collapse on the weight of all this new business? Because you just don't, wake up and go, oh, we're 20 million today and we were 2 million. Because again, it's not linear where you're going the same. If you look at the organizational chart of a $2 million company and then you looked at it when they were 20 million, the framework of the organizational chart doesn't look the same. It's changed. It's not just a horizontally flat organization. There's pyramids built within. And So that's one example. When you're killing it and you still need someone to come in to help you build out the framework for support, the second one is typically um, they're doing okay, but all of a sudden the trajectory is starting to flatten out. Like all of a sudden things are working, but not as well as they used to, or operations are doing okay, but not as efficient as they used to, and they can kind of sense something's wrong, and they're realizing that their ideas and their strategies, they understand and appreciate everything in life has a shelf life. It's gonna wear out. I mean, you could be killing it in 2022. I mean, you think back in your own business. There's probably some things you did 3 years ago that made you a ton of money.
Yeah.
And today they're not doing as well. They're not bad, but they're not, they're kind of old. They're kind of getting stale. You need something new. And that's very common with any business. So there's that second group where they're seeing the expiration date approaching, and they need to get something in place because the world keeps going and they got to catch up.
Yeah.
Okay. And the third bucket is they're out of options. They don't know what to do at this point, and they're frustrated. I use this metaphor. They've gone through the process of they keep trying to ride the horse. The horse is dead. Okay, we can't put a new jockey on it and it's all going to be better. Okay, it's like the horse is dead. What else you got? Well, this is all we got is this horse. I'm like, well, we need to get you something else.
Right.
So that's the third category. But those three scenarios are what we typically run into. One of the three.
Okay.
We typically run into one of those three scenarios, but they happen between 2 million and 20 million all the time. So the size of the company doesn't matter. It's usually which category do you fall into.
Got it. That's good. What's one mindset shift that has saved you through your leadership journey?
Being smart enough to build up the people around me. In the beginning, I wanted to do it all by myself, thinking I could do it. I'm a smart guy. I went to this school and that school, and I have that degree and this degree, and you win this award and that award and all that. That stuff goes to your head.
The ego.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to take away from either my own case or anybody else, but until you invite others to come in to help you, that's where the real growth occurs. Again, I said earlier, you're not a solopreneur. You're not an entrepreneur all by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a big company. Taylor, we had 100 and some employees. Well, let's take advantage of them, And you have to be the leader to show that vision, but your job is also to create the environment for them to thrive in.
Right.
And if you allow them to thrive, they can carry some of that weight. And they can let them shine. I never had a problem with that, letting others shine. Some leaders have a problem with that. They don't want to share that spotlight. And they're fools for doing that. It's still your bat and ball. Get over it. Let someone from below, let them, feel, that the enthusiasm, the thrill of victory,
Do you mostly see that like in managers or actually business owners, the leaders?
Both. It's always insecure people.
Wow.
I don't care where they are when you start hogging the spotlight, you're insecure. When you start, not like delegating and you want to control everything,
Hoarding.
You're insecure. If you are micromanaging your employees, you're screaming, I don't trust you. That's why I'm going to double check everything you do, every little step of the way. That screams, I trust you, and you're insecure. And nobody wants to work for that guy or gal.
What would you say to business owners that are hanging by a thread right now?
Don't give up. It's just a point in time. Yeah, it sucks, but reach out for help. You know what? Maybe you've tried everything, and it's not a reflection on you because there's so many forces in business that are way beyond your control. And some people catch a break in their careers, and they don't get hit with too many of those. But sometimes other people do, and it's hard. When you get hit with those issues, you may not be able to figure them out on your own. So reach out for help. That's a sign of strength when you ask for help. When you leave it all, I got to figure it out myself. I'm the captain of the ship, and if it goes down, well, that's on me or whatever it may be. But don't think, and I've seen some leaders feel like, it's a sign of weakness if I ask Juan for help and get his consulting on what I should do. And I had a couple, this happened less than a year ago, 2 potential clients, they were related businesses, and they reached out to us, and it was too late. I don't know if I doubt they're still in business today. I mean, when I finally got to see the financials, it was like, why didn't you come to me 6 months ago? I could have helped you then. Now you're so the drain swirling into the drain. They were so far down the drain, it's too late. You can't fix everything.
Right.
So if you're hanging on by a thread, don't wait. Time is not on your side. Take action. Seek help. Because if you wait too long, no one's going to loan you money. No one's going to invest in your business. No one can strategize the way out of it. If there's some thread left, we can work our way out. Great. But don't wait till it's too late. The longer you wait, the more likely it is the demise is not far off.
Got it. So we touched on a lot. Out of the 5 main topics, what would you say is more important?
Wow.
We had cash flow. We had marketing, systems. What else did we have? Clarity, vision, and leadership.
Leadership. The biggest thing is inviting people to the table through appreciative inquiry. That solves everything else. That'll take care of the marketing. It'll take care of the finance. It'll take care of the strategies. It'll take care of any problem you have, and it'll change your culture. If you invite people to the table to solve the problems, you'll have better talent retention, better acquisition, because people want to work for you, because word's going to get out. That's a great place to work. And that would be the number one thing, is if you value the people that you have, you create that culture of invitation, contribution, respect, that's when you're going to go to the moon. Everything else you'll solve with that. That's the key thing. If you make it all about you and you want to hog the spotlight and you're the boss and you're going to tell people what to do, that'll work for a while, but not forever.
Yeah. So where can people actually find you?
Well, you can find me. I'm online at thecompetitiveedgegroup.com. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can see my name, Jeff Baldassari. I'm on LinkedIn often. I'm posting pretty regularly.
Instagram? Are you on Instagram?
Nope. LinkedIn's it.
Okay.
So that's all I do. I'm one of the few, and I don't do Facebook either, so I don't do that. But LinkedIn would be the number one place, or our website, just to reach out. And, for what I do, I'm in the service business, and I'm a big believer that services aren't sold. They're bought. So if someone want to reach out and ask, just have a conversation, I'm willing to have a conversation. Maybe I can help. Maybe we're not a right fit to work together, but I'm happy to give them a couple bits of information and direct them to where they could get the help that they need. Or maybe the bits of information I give them, they can take with it and run and be okay. Or maybe we can work together. But I don't try to push real hard to get a job. But I want to work with the people that want to be with me, and they're easy to work with. They're going to take new ideas. We're not going to fight the battle of I've had this where I had this one client, I'm not going to name names. Wasn't you one? No, it's analogous to, I want to lose weight. Okay, great. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to eat right, and we're going to do these things. Well, I don't want to do that stuff. Well, then you're not going to lose weight.
Right.
So I've had that in business where they want to get a certain outcome and they won't change their behavior. It's like, I can't get you the outcome that you want if you don't change your behavior, because the behavior you have isn't getting you what you want now. That's why you called me. So, you got to work with me here. So trust me, trust Leslie, and we're going to be there with you. We're on a 6-month journey, and we provide a guarantee to our work.
Yeah, because Leslie, she's really good with hiring. She's very smart.
Absolutely. So that's it.
So yeah, guys, reach out to him. I personally worked with him, and he changed my whole perspective on my business, and it's going to improve your business as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. If this show hits home, please reach out to Jeff.
All right. Hey, thanks, Juan. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Hands, Heart, and Hustle. If this conversation with Jeff spoke to you, please take a moment to reflect, subscribe, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep your hands working and your heart aligned, and your hustle growing with purpose.
The greatest gift that I got is grit. Resilient, I don't know how to quit. And I don't know what it is. You can call